Hi everyone, today we're talking about Barry.
Barry!
For those of you who don't know, Barry is a thriller comedy show on HBO starring Bill Hader.
And just in case you don't know, Bill is not truly a hater. He's actually a lover. That's his problem.
Anyways, today our goal is to get you to watch the show if you haven't seen the show, and if you have seen the show, to talk a little bit about what's great about it and why we're excited for Season 3. We just watched the first episode of Season 3, so we're going to be talking about that. But before we get into that, we do need to try to convince people to watch this show. So why don't you tell people why you like the show and why you would recommend it?
It is like one of the funniest shows I've watched, and it's not boring. It's very quick. It's quick episodes. They're like 20 to 30 minutes long.
They're 30 minutes
30
long,
minutes
usually.
long. It's just really bizarre in the most funny way possible. Like
very dark humor.
Very dark humor, and I feel like if you like more sarcasm and dark humor, then Barry's the show for you. Why would you recommend it?
It is a very unique vision, and it's very clearly driven by people who care a lot about storytelling, who care a lot about telling a unique story with an interesting tone. This is a show that is very funny, and it's about a hitman. You'd think there'd be this kind of like Tarantino kind of quality to it where the violence is over the top. What I like about the show is that it's dealing with this kind of like traditional like subject of like the hitman in Hollywood, you know, wanting to be an actor, but dealing with it with a very realistic look but that doesn't get rid of the funny aspects, because there's like absurdity to the whole concept, and that leaks into the show, but it's mostly dramatic and deals with the violence very seriously. Like unlike another show that would just maybe like make light of the violence, like it's just part of it and we're kind of desensitized to it, the violence in Barry is always disturbing. It's very upsetting, and that's what I really like about the show, because it can be funny. It has really great funny moments, but also insanely disturbing stuff that is really sad and heartfelt and moving. We get this mixture that is just totally unlike anything we've ever seen. Not to mention, it just has an incredible pace, short episodes that always end with like the best hook that makes you want to watch the next episode.
I definitely agree that I think that it does make you always want to, like, even when like there's an episode that's like, okay, where is this going? Then like there's something comedic at the end that it's like, oh my god, I want to watch the next episode. And
because it doesn't bother, it's always taking risks. It's not afraid to take risks.
It's not just only risky, it's also kind of relatable.
It's relatable because it's dealing with like characters' real feelings. You know, Barry is extremely disturbed. He has PTSD. He's very depressed, and he's trying to break out of this system that he's been dragged into, this, you know, killing people, and he wants to do something bigger with himself. He finds his life in acting, and that's what he wants to do, but he can't break out of the cycle of violence. And that's what the show's all about. But the show takes risks all the time. You know, you don't really know what kind of like stylistic thing is going to be part of the next episode. Like it's stylistically consistent throughout, but some episodes are just like about young gymnast, like 11-year-old who's suddenly just like trying to kill, like hunting them down.
I know that
like
is my favorite.
One of my favorite episodes.
Oh my god! Yeah.
So, and which is directed so well. Like the directing is very distinct. It's like very much feels like you're watching a film. You know, it's very well shot and very uniquely shot, and the writing is, like I said, bizarre at times and willing to take these ideas and look at them like realistically. And the episode we're talking about, a simple hit spirals out of control, and soon we're just dealing with the most absurd stuff. It doesn't like hold your hand and try to make it easy, and it deals with very, very tough topics too in each episode. Like I think it's an important show. Speaking
of tough topics, what do you think about the violence in the show?
I think the violence is great. because it's unlike a lot of the violence we're used to in Hollywood and in a lot of TV shows. Like either the violence is like invisible and doesn't feel real, like in Marvel movies where it's like you don't see any blood, it's just kind of like people get shot and then they're just like, they don't even matter, you know? That's one way. And then you have like the Tarantino kind of like fun, campy violence where it's over the top and bloody and it's like a gore fest, which is its own thing, which is enjoyable. But this is looking at violence very seriously, and it's a very sad look at how violence affects families. Like there are some episodes I think about all the time where I think like, oh my God, like that was just really difficult to consider the effects, the ramifications of violence. We see violence occur, and then we see what it leads to. We see, how it affects our characters. It's done very well, and somehow it has all of this in it while also allowing for the funniest characters, NoHo Hank, Henry Winkler's character, but it's never so over the top that it breaks reality. It just feels like, yeah, this world is insane. Like it's a bizarre world where this kind of torment and sadness can exist alongside really funny moments.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And what do you think about the 30-minute format?
I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I really like the 30-minute format because I hate longer episodes that for a comedy, because it literally seems like it drags on.
There's no filler.
The point is like being made over and over again.
Yeah.
This show kind of reminds me of The Good Place.
Yeah.
Because it's just very quick.
The stakes are always escalating.
And
things are always getting more
timing
complicated.
Is perfect. So
yeah, there's no filler or fat. It's always escalating. It's always making bolder choices that make you go like, where is this going? Like, you have to watch.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up non-spoilers for those who are watching who haven't seen the show yet by saying it's worth checking out. It's on HBO, but it's so worth checking out. The first 2 seasons are out, and then the 3rd season just started.
And you'll get through it so quick.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about spoilers, and I think what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the character arcs in the 1st and 2nd seasons and where they're leading to and what we think will happen in the 3rd season, because we've seen just the 1st episode. This Sunday, the 2nd episode for season 3 will come out, but we want to talk a little bit about what our predictions maybe will be. I think that could be interesting, and how the characters have evolved in interesting ways. So why don't you take us off by talking about our lead, Barry? Where has he been and where is he going?
Barry is an interesting fellow.
Yes.
He is a hitman who is working for a guy in
Fuchs.
Yeah.
He shows up in Hollywood because he has to kill a guy, but he ends up somehow through a comic situation, he ends up doing an acting class.
He ends up doing acting class and then ends up falling for this woman.
Sally.
Yep. Sally is a very serious actor. He ends up really liking the acting class, and he actually wants to give up being a hitman and wants to be a full-time actor. So he joins the school, works under this professor. So he ends up really loving his acting coach, Gene Cousineau,
who starts out being this smarmy jerk who's just I'm better than everyone. My word is gospel. But we end up starting to really like him because he's actually very sweet in his own way.
Yeah.
But he starts out, we're oh, this guy's such a jerk.
And what I love about this whole different characters is that I think it's very us being in LA and Hollywood, and
we know these acting types. We know these people and
and it's so portrayed very accurately.
So realistic.
To the point where it's you can make fun of it really nicely. So I think that's also why we love the show.
Yes.
His previous boss is not very happy that he wants to quit being a hitman and be an actor.
No, also he gets involved with the Chechen gang because he kills some of their people.
Yeah,
so
why don't you finish it?
He gets involved. He owes the Chechens a certain amount of hits in season 1, so he starts doing that. Basically, it's the recurring theme of Barry trying to get away from killing people, and he's always pulled back into it by Fuchs. And Fuchs starts to become this villain character because the more we learn about Barry, and we learn more in season 2 about where he came from. Barry was he served in either Afghanistan or Iraq, killed people in the war, and that's how he got recruited afterwards by Fuchs, because he had a moment that we finally get to see, which was done very well, where he goes crazy and kind of kills a bunch of civilians. So he was relieved from duty. He wasn't put in prison or anything, but he was relieved from duty, doesn't really know what he's going to do with his life, and Fuchs comes in and says, hey, I can give you work. You're an amazing person because you can just kill people without feeling much, because Barry talks about that in his acting class, how he's I can, what was it like when you killed someone in the war? And everyone's talking about their traumatic moments, and he's trying to talk about it and bring up his emotions, but in reality, he just says, I felt nothing. I felt nothing, and that's why he's a good hitman, and so that's why he was recruited by Fuchs to do this. But now it's just building up, and everything's getting tied up. His acting world, his hitman world, it's the stuff is getting messy and builds up to one of the hardest and most difficult scenes we watched, where he has to kill his very good friend from the war who has a family, because he gets tied up in the hitman stuff very naively, thinking he can handle it, and turns out the guilt is kind of driving him crazy. So Barry has to kill him, and it's very tough, but following that is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, where Barry is supposed to do a scene on stage, like a very brief cameo on stage with Sally after killing his friend, and he's so emotionally beat up that he starts like freaking out. He's like a panic attack. He's like sobbing. Earlier in the show, we see him like not being able to perform very well because he's very emotionally cut off, which is why he's very bad at acting. But in this scene, he's so vulnerable. He's like freaking out that he walks on stage like fully crying, and everyone's just like, like, what the hell?
I know, and those are the parts that I really love about
because it's
Barry.
so sad, but it's so funny too.
I know, and it's like the acting is so brilliant and so well done that it's like interesting. It's amazing. Like it's kind of like, I don't know if you are a Friends fan, but I just feel like there are some shows that have the perfect mix of cast.
Yeah.
And I really think Barry does.
After the scene where Barry does his excellent performance and awes everybody, he goes into like one of the rooms in the studio, and Mr. Cousineau comes up to him and is like, "Barry, that was excellent. That was amazing. How did you get into that place?"
And then he starts smashing.
He's smashing shit.
Everything. And then the acting teacher goes, "Okay.
You're still in that space."
Okay. And he's just,
okay,
sorry,
you're still in that space.
Yeah.
I'll go. And he's like having a total meltdown. And that's what, because it's like you're both like feeling really sorry for Barry and dealing with like the trauma he's having to go through, but also like laughing at just the insanity of the situation of how he's just trying to succeed as an actor. So season 2 ends because Barry is being followed by the cops, the LAPD and the FBI or whatever, trying to figure out who's killing these people. Of course, it turns out that this detective who's on his case ends up falling in love with his teacher, Gene Cousineau. And everything seems to be going well near the end of season 1. And then in season 2, we have to deal with the effects of Barry killing her and Gene's sadness. And he's really depressed. That's when I started to really relate to Mr. Cousineau, who was an asshole, at the start. What happens at the end of season 2 is that Fuchs, as an act of revenge, because Barry is not loyal to him anymore, Fuchs tells Gene Cousineau that Barry killed his girlfriend.
Yeah. The love of his life.
The love of his life. And that's where we end season 2. And Barry, in total, losing his mind, totally not in control of himself, which is becoming a more and more of a problem with Barry. Mm-hmm. He doesn't control himself. He goes to, like, the drug lord's house. Barry goes in there trying to find Fuchs to kill him, and he loses his mind. He massacres, like, the whole place, kills all these people. It's very disturbing. And then that's where we end season 2. And then we come to season 3, which we're trying to figure out what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. A lot has happened in the meantime, it turns out, because, well, COVID happened, but, so we haven't been able to watch the show for a while. But a lot has happened, so why don't you tell us where we're at now with the start of season 3.
So season 3 starts out really dark. Barry has totally lost it. He's struggling internally and he wants forgiveness but feels like he's past that. So he just kills without remorse at all, and very, very like...
Even people he doesn't have to kill. He's just killing them.
He's just killing in order to fulfill this emptiness. And he's with his girlfriend, Sally, but he's not satisfied with her at all.
She's very successful.
She's very successful, but it seems now more like... I mean, we've only seen one episode of season 3 because the others haven't come out yet, but it seems like she's very shallow and their relationship almost feels very surface shallow.
Level. Well, it seems like she could break up with him at any moment because her career's going quite well.
She doesn't really care about his career at all because her career is going really well. She's on a show.
And he's just playing video games.
She doesn't really like put as much effort into him and his career as much as she expected in previous seasons for him to put into her career. So there's a difference in balance, I think, of love and attention there. But also, like the acting professor, Gene, he, because in the previous season, as Jake stated, he gets burdened with this knowledge that Barry killed his
even though Barry has
girlfriend.
Been cleared by the cops, but Gene Cousineau believes Barry killed her regardless, even though Barry has been cleared.
Yeah. So it gets pretty dark. He tells his grandson that everything's going to be okay. He loves him and takes a gun and asks Barry to meet him in the acting studio, which is now closed. Yeah. It's actually this is where it becomes really funny.
Yeah, it was dark the whole time until the end.
Yeah, exactly. He tells Barry, he knows that Barry killed his girlfriend, and if he doesn't let him take Barry to the police officer, he is going to kill Barry.
Yeah.
right when he says that and he has the gun underneath, you can just hear
all the bullets
just
and then just
falling
roll
on
under
the
the
floor
desk.
and rolling on the floor, and he goes, he's like, oh shit, like,
And then
he's like kind of like gesturing, like, did I say that? I didn't mean it. We're cool. And then Barry, being the psychopath that he is right now,
he just goes, I'm sorry. And then
he goes, I'm sorry. And then he gets him in the trunk, kidnaps him, and then takes him in this field where he's
about to kill him.
About to kill him. He tells Jean that he wants forgiveness, and then
he says something like, forgiveness has to be earned.
And then Barry has
like
an
a moment.
idea of how it can be earned.
He's like, I can make it up to you.
Yeah, but then he goes right after, get back in the trunk.
Well, he goes like, it's like nonchalant. He's just like, well, okay, get back in the trunk, because it's like he can't let him know where he takes people to get killed.
Right. Yeah.
But that was just such a funny moment, because Barry killed his girlfriend, and now he's like, hey, this could work out if you just let me help you out. I can, like, you'll forgive me and you'll, like, earn my trust again. And I'm so excited to see this dynamic between them, because
okay, I think this is a good time to, like, do some prediction a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. So
what do you
I
want to say?
think that Barry is going to help Gene with reopening his acting studio.
Absolutely.
And because Gene has lost his passion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at the end of the day, because Gene and Barry had a good connection going on, I think Gene is going to be at the end of the season, like, burdened with, like, choosing someone he looks as like a son, because Gene is an actor himself. He, like, or used to be, he is very in tune with emotion, so I think Gene is going to find some empathy with Barry.
But I don't think he's going to be able to forgive Barry. I think it's going to be a very difficult relationship between the two. I think
at first, but I think eventually he will.
I don't know. I mean, that's rough, and I don't. It's going to be interesting, because Barry idolizes Gene. Mm-hmm. And in the past, Gene is just, like, so stuck up and, like, full of himself, but now he's just such a broken man. Mm-hmm. And, like, we want to see him come back to that, and so it's going to be a weird dynamic for sure. I'm just so eager. Maybe Barry's going to try to get him, like, a role in Sally's show or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Or something like that.
Should we talk about Sally?
Yeah.
So Sally, I really didn't like her in the beginning. I felt like she was very stuck up.
She was, very self-involved.
And I think she still is.
She is.
But she becomes a little bit more funny and someone that you're able to empathize with. Why don't you do the whole recap with Sally?
Well, she becomes more complex, especially in the second season when Barry and her are dating. We learn a little bit more about what is driving her towards success, and we also learn about her abusive relationship, which was a really interesting plot element in season 2, because she's trying to write about this this person, her abusive ex-boyfriend, and Barry is, like, trying to deal with his need to, like, find vengeance, but also not screw everything up, because his main reaction to most things in life is just kill, know. And Sally finally is able to find success at the end of season 2 by, like, writing her own stuff and, like, performing a monologue or something like that. Mm-hmm. And she ends up, I guess, becoming a showrunner in season 2. Or in season 3. We don't know yet how successful this show is going to be. She seems very stressed, very wound up. There's a lot that is quite unlikable about her, because she's very caught up in her own world. So I'd be interested to see in this season if
she's not a very empathetic character, like, meaning, like, she doesn't really empathize with other characters either.
Well, she's an actor in Hollywood, that's the thing. She seems very realistic to a lot of acting types in Hollywood, who are just very, very, very career focused. It's like, do or die, gotta get my career. Everyone else is expendable. We're all just using each other to advance our careers. That's
what I love about the acting scene is, I'm forgetting Janice from The Good Place.
Yeah, Darcy.
I
forget her name.
Yeah. She's in this show, and she's also a struggling actor, but then because to pay her bills, she becomes Sally's assistant. Yeah. And then Sally's just bossing her around. I felt like she is the most relatable one, because there are not as many successes, Mm-hmm. And I feel like Sally just struggling, or not Sally, sorry, Darcy struggling to make ends meet by being Sally's assistant and then having to take Sally's BS is just, like, super funny the way she deals with it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking it'd be funny or interesting if Sally learns about Barry's, like, what he actually does. this
That would
season.
be really interesting. I feel like she's such a funny actress that I want to see more.
But she needs. I feel like I also want to see that shell of hers be broken a little bit. She's just very in her own world, and to learn about all of this horror going on just right outside her peripheral, like she's just so tunnel vision, just to see what's actually going on, I think might just like break her.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think we spoke about all the main characters
No
except
Ho
for
Hank. No Ho Hank. Well, Fuchs is just terrible guy. He's just horrible.
Fuchs is someone who
so
is
manipulative.
literally, I don't even know what to say about him. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say about him except he's a very manipulative guy. He tries to make you feel like you can empathize with him, but you can just tell, especially in season 2, the way that he went after Barry for literally wanting to choose his own acting career.
Yeah, you could even sort of chart the show by Barry just looking for his father figure. I mean, he's moving from Fuchs as a father figure to now Mr. Cousineau as a father figure. And clearly Mr. Cousineau is very flawed, but he's a much better father figure for Barry.
Well, and then just when he finds a real father figure in...
Fuchs ruins it.
Fuchs ruins it by telling him the truth about... Just telling him the circumstances surrounding, his girlfriend's death. So, NoHo Hank is so freaking funny.
Yeah.
He's a type of guy who is trying to fit into this world of mafia type, but like he is like, you can tell he's too nice to be in the world.
Well, he's very much a psychopath, but he's very like...
He's a nice psychopath.
He's like he's just seems like a very normal person in a psychopathic way.
I don't know. It's kind of like he's a psychopath, yes, but you kind of want to hug him and hang out with him.
Yeah, it feels like he's in a different show, sort of. Where
he does. It's kind of like it's like someone that you want to seek advice from because he's just funny. So yeah.
I don't think you should get advice from NoHo Hank.
Not for real advice, just funny advice. Yeah. We highly recommend the show. 10 out of 10 in my book.
It's becoming my favorite show if it's not already my favorite show.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there has to be more seasons, but right now it's definitely my favorite show to watch.
Yeah.
It's the one I've been most looking forward to.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.